involved in our study from the beginning of phase one. In fact, in phase one of the study, we took a preliminary concept of the Oxford master plan before it was ever formally submitted to the design review panel, at the same time as taking phase one of the secondary plan study. And it was at that meeting, again, that they identify the importance of ensuring coordination. It was our hope, actually, that we could work together through the study process without the submission of an application. So because it's our intention that the policies and guidelines created through the secondary plan will actually guide development without the need for a site and area specific policy on their lands. That being said, they submitted it, and we encourage them, and I'm sure they will participate in the remaining phase of the study. We will also have a community consultation meeting, and we have had the opportunity, or we've provided the opportunity for Oxford. They've had one-on-one meeting with our consulting team to talk about issues, and I'm certain that as specific policies and guidelines start to take shape in phase four, we will continue to have those discussions.
Thank you very much for that. And can you just speak to the expansion of the Bloor Danforth subway line into Scarborough, into Greater Scarborough? And what is the impact? Because I understand that there isn't a station per se at the Scarborough Town Centre, but there's a station that is in proximity at McCowan. How will connections be made? How will this coordination that you're speaking about transition into making sure that there's appropriate connections so that customers, passengers, users of the system and so on can be sort of fettered through very efficiently in order to have access to the Scarborough Town Centre, to have access to this new development that is being planned for this area?
For you, Madam Chair, as part of the study process, connectivity across the entire centre is an area that we are extremely interested in and looking to improve it, because we all know how challenging it is to get from one side of the centre to the other. So as part of the subway extension, they are looking at knockout panels to allow for future connections on the west side of McCowan Road. I cannot speak with certainty where those knockout panels lie within the ultimate design. That is a separate group that is looking into that. But I can assure you that we will be ensuring appropriate and safe at-grade connections from the east to the west side of McCowan, and that any future redevelopment on the Oxford lands, we will of course be wanting to ensure that they tie into those connections.
Thank you. Those are all my questions, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions of staff? Okay, we'll move to speakers. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank Ms. Dines for her excellent presentation, and Mr. Lametti as well for his presentation. There's a lot of coordination that's taking place. I do have a motion, Madam Chair, that I'd like to ask the clerk to put on the screen. And the motion really is to expand the notification area beyond the prescribed 120 meters. The Scarborough Town Centre is such an asset to the community. It is essentially a landmark in our community, and it serves a wide area, not just Scarborough. People from far and wide come and shop in this area. The transformation that's going to take place is going to be phenomenal. It is going to finally create that center of Scarborough that our forefathers had planned for this area. There's a number of amazing things that are happening that is actually generating the interest. I think one of the unique things that's taking place is the expansion of the subway into the heart of Scarborough, and certainly want to thank Premier Ford and his government for that foresight and understanding of our community for making this happen. Because as a result of that, we are going to see more investment in the community, more opportunities in the community, more opportunities for people to live, work, and play in place. In essence, they don't necessarily have to take transit as a result. Because of transit actually being developed, it creates a huge opportunity here in our community and so on. My concern is, and I want to make sure that it's fully, sort of baked in terms of the consideration. It's around ensuring that people understand that there's a lot of work that's actually being done in coordinating efforts and so on to ensure that there is an overall plan in collaboration with all the property owners and so on, and that the Scarborough Center plan work that's being done in review, that those policies are going to essentially form the basis in which we build out this particular area. And in as much as the plans for the town center and the application that's in front of us today is in front of us in advance of the full Scarborough Center plan review taking place, we've heard from Ms. Dines that it is in collaboration, and so it is very consistent with respect to our desire to ensure that those policies are going to help with respect to forming the sort of informing the plans and the development application and that process. The town center area has such a great impact on all of Scarborough and certainly beyond. So I think that in as much as it is in the heart of my area, Scarborough Center, Ward 21, it has an impact that is much larger than my area. So I think it would be fair to say that areas, all of our respective communities will have an interest in terms of what's taking place, what's going on there, and so on. And that's the reason for my desire to have the expanded notification area, because I think it makes a lot of sense actually to ensure that we inform more people as to what's actually happening. I have actually absolute confidence in the collaboration with the Oxford Property Group, Mr. Lemeti's group, and Ms. Dine's leadership, and which is excellent, by the way. I've had a chance to work with Ms. Dines now for many, many years, and I can say that she gets better and better every single year that she is on these files and so on. And I want to thank her for her leadership. We've been to many of the meetings that she's had with landowners and the stakeholders in the community. And so we also have a number of community groups and community associations that are interested in terms of what's taking place. We have the Glen Andrews Community Association, we have Maryvale, we have obviously Midland Park and others and so on that are interested in what's going to happen here. So there's going to be a lot of input, I'm sure, coming from the community, and the broader we allow for the notification area, the better response, the better inputs we'll have. But I just simply wanted to allow people to understand that this application is not proceeding without great thoughts to it and great input, as well as ensuring that it follows the guidelines of the policies that the Scarborough Center policy and the review that Ms. Dines is undertaking along with her team. So I ask that we support the notification expansion that I've asked for, and those are my remarks. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Are there any additional speakers to this item? Okay, I just want to thank Deputy Mayor and city staff for the leadership on this important area of the city.
Support staff to display, or Francis will be able to display the attachments. Go ahead, Francis.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, Francis Quashi, Senior Planner, Community Planning Scarborough District. Not sure if you can see my presentation. Is it before you? Thank you. So the subject property is on the northwest corner of Bellamy Road North and Eglinton Avenue East. It is immediately north of the Eglinton GO station. And the application itself proposes three tall buildings of 25, 30, and 37 stories with an FSI of 7.36 and a total of 935 residential units. Now, on your next slide, you see a view looking northeast showing the proposed buildings at 25. That is the building to the west, And then 30 stories is the building in the middle. And then to at the corner of the side, you have the 37-story building. Now, to the very west of the side, they also propose a public park. The next slide is also a different context showing the view of the proposal from the back, from the southwest. In terms of the site plan, which is before you, it shows, the site organization. As I said, the 37-story building is at the corner of the site. You have the 30-story building in the middle, and then you have the 25-story building to the west of the site, and then you have the new proposed public park to the west of the site. In terms of site access, the proposing the main access to be off Eglinton Avenue East. In terms of the official plan designation, the entire site is designated mixed-use areas. As you can see in the color red, and to the immediate north of it, it is designated apartment neighborhoods. To the south of it, where you have the Eglinton GO station, the designation is mixed-use areas. And then further south of the rail tracks, you have neighborhoods and parks. In terms of the existing zoning, it is zoned commercial residential, as you can see in front of you. So from staff's perspective, given the scale and given the scale of the proposed development and the fact that it definitely exceeds the existing planning framework, staff have recommended that a planning study be undertaken for the area to concurrently review the application. And so as part of that, you can see on page 2 of the staff report that city staff has asked that the application be reviewed concurrently with the planning study, and that staff's and that Scarborough Community Council's consideration
I
of
apologize for the interruption. This is the host to Francis. If you are currently displaying something, there is currently nothing on the screen. All we see is a gray box.
Okay.
Thank you. The image has returned.
Okay. Thank you very much. And so just to go back to it, just to go back to my previous summary, staff have made a determination that a planning study is required for the reason that the proposed development exceeds what the planning framework currently calls for. The planning framework currently calls for mid-rise buildings of up to 11 stories. The proposal before us essentially calls for 3 tall buildings of 25, 30, and 37 stories. Staff are of the opinion that a proposal of this scale will set a precedent for the segment of Eglinton Avenue East. And so that is the end of my very brief presentation, and I'm open for any questions from council. Thank you.
Okay, questions of staff? Sorry, I'm just waiting for my screen to change back. I can't see anybody. I'll just let you speak. Did anybody have a question to staff?
I just had a brief question or two for Mr. Gwashi, Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Gwashi. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm just wondering, in the report, it talks about a local advisory committee and so on. How will that be structured?
Well, the local advisory committee will form part of the planning exercise that staff have recommended. And so as part of the overall review of the proposal, and also to look at the entire segment to ensure that development is at the right scale and intensity, and also to ensure that there's sufficient services to support development along this segment. City staff will be reaching out through you, through your office, as well as Councillor Crawford as well, whose ward is immediately south of the site, to set up a local advisory committee. Now, this will be made up of local residents, local businesses, key stakeholders that city staff will identify. And I will say that the study will be initiated and led by city staff. And in terms of the timeline, the expectation is that work on this planning study will commence during the second quarter of 2022.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. I wanted to make sure that Councillor Crawford's committee would be involved as well. I'm just wondering, so when you indicated that this is a planning study led by city staff, will we be hiring consultants as well, or is it just simply purely city staff will be going through this process?
It's still very early in the process, and
Okay.
staff are still undertaking internal discussions on how best to pivot the planning study. It may be that through our internal conversations, we might need external consultants to support the
Okay.
study, but it is still to
Okay.
be determined.
Okay, no, that's very helpful. And as part of that, the planning study, will you be looking at need assessments and all of the other unique things that are required when we have sort of massive development of this nature taking place? Because I imagine that between McCowan and Bellamy, which is this area, because of the East Eglinton LRT that is being planned for this area, that you're going to have additional proposals coming forward. I'm just wondering whether or not what will be the extent of the sort of planning area. Are you going to go that far west?
And in terms of our initial internal discussions, and let me just take a step back. The provincial
Sure.
policies have asked for intensification around major transit station areas, and so with that in mind, it makes sense to look, extend the planning study. Initially, we were thinking of looking at Bellamy to McCowan, however, and also look at potential sites to the north and south of Eglinton as well. So generally, this is the area that we're looking at. In terms of the components or the ingredients of the study, we intend to look at built form. We want to look at existing community services and facilities. We want to look at parks. We want to look at the network. We want to look at pedestrian connections, and also to ensure that ultimately the outcome of the study is supportive of transit-oriented communities. And as Councillor Crawford and yourself, Deputy Mayor Thompson is aware, we've done a similar work, on Eglinton in the Golden Mile area. We're not replicating it, but we're looking at the ingredients of that study to ensure that there's consistency along Eglinton as well.
Okay, and then can you then tell me,
Councillor Crawford?
Yeah, actually, Councillor Thompson had most of my questions answered. I just wanted to clarify then. So you talk about the segment study, and I think the word suggests that generally between McCowan and Mason. So you're suggesting that this could actually expand that depending on where you go, and of course north and south. I just wanted to clarify that with you.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct.
Okay, and just a small point of order, you should maybe change the in consultation with the word councillor to councillors, and that would just, as Councillor Thompson had mentioned, it's both of us, but I just want a big NS would be an important aspect of the recommendation. So small little detail, but yeah, it could never be too detail oriented. Thanks.
Through you, Madam Chair, and the point is well taken.
Thank you.
Okay, speakers on this item. Deputy Mayor?
thank you very much, Madam Chair. I do have a motion, and it is similar to the last one I moved. It's the expanding the notification area to 500 meters instead of the required 120 meters, because I think, again, there's going to be a tremendous transformation that will take place along this stretch. And I think that more people that are involved, more input that comes forward will be definitely extremely important to this particular process. I want to thank Mr. Kouachi for his excellent presentation and certainly the thoughtfulness that have gone into this. And I'm excited, but at the same time a little nervous, because this is going to transform the area. We have a long-standing traditional communities in the area and so on that haven't seen anything like this, obviously, in the area or even close to their area. And it's going to take some efforts, and part of that is part of the planning study process that Mr. Kouachi has spoken about. But I'm also excited that the local advisory committee that will be structured, that will help to provide input and to provide advice on, issues and conditions and so on. Madam Chair, there are necessities to form advisory group and so on. And it's really important that those advisory groups understand that the nature and the work that's involved, it is to inform and to provide input and so on. I've seen situations where advisory group has been structured and they go completely you know, contrary to what's actually being offered, which is an opportunity to collectively and collaboratively work together and so on. So I'm hoping that we can strike such an organized local advisory committee to be able to work in sort of a coordinated way to affect positive outcome for the best interests and so on. And you know, I've had the pleasure of working with Councillor Crawford on Golden Mile as we both work diligently with local advisory committees and so on. And that process has worked extremely well to inform the process and to continue to work through to help and expand and develop. There is certainly a shortage of housing and a need for affordable housing and other kinds of housing in the city of Toronto. Scarborough is the jewel of the city of Toronto. And we are finally getting not only the recognition of who we are as fantastic, great people with great amenities, great restaurants, great services, and so on. We're now also getting the investments. And that is going to be a shock for many because it requires intensification, because the fact is we're not making land anymore. It's is in sort of limited supply. And so we're looking at economizing and developing more efficient processes as part of the lands that we have available to develop. And obviously we have higher order transits that's coming in, which is very, very helpful. And I say Scarborough is a jewel because there are still some people who have views of Scarborough which is totally unfounded. And even some residents living in Scarborough may have those particular views. But I invite you to see the new Scarborough, see the amazing parks, Rouge Park, and all the other great things that are here. And as we build out better transit, we're going to see more developments come. But that development has to be in keeping with respect to what the community will support and planning staff and so on. And I'm delighted that there's a process that's been established in this particular report for us to be able to work together with the broader community to ensure that full input will be incorporated in the forming of our policies and our guidelines that will help in terms of the development of the site. So happy that the investments are coming into our community, happy that we'll have more people living in the community, happy that we will look at all the needs and the assessing the requirements for schools and traffic and all the things that are needed. So I just want to reiterate the fact that we're not forgetting any elements or concerns that anyone may have with respect to these types of development and applications coming forward. We're fully on the ball, ready to tackle the opportunity, but we also welcome these opportunities as well for our community, because to grow our community, to grow it in a balanced way, that is in the best interest of all. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Additional speakers to this item, Councillor Crawford.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to thank Councillor Thompson, first of all, for expanding the notification area. What it does is, as he's already mentioned, allows the broader community to really get behind and support, potentially support or not, but have the information available for this whole planning segment study. When you're looking at residents, they don't always see the boundary lines, ward boundary lines between different councillors. They sort of look at this as communities where they live. Our planning process sometimes does not look at that. I mean, we will have certain ward areas and they are separated sometimes. So as much as Councillor Thompson and I work incredibly close on, the Golden Mile, as he'd mentioned, or other areas, sometimes the process does not allow the same sort of collaboration that I think is really, really important for the community because, as I said, they don't necessarily see ward boundaries, they see communities. So I think in the combination of expanding the notification area, looking at a segment study, there will be an impact, to everybody in that area. And as he said, there is a transformation that is taking place along Eglinton Avenue out in the east part. All good, so long as we do it properly. I think that area is in need of intensification and this right kind of services for the community. But we need to do it properly. We need to do it succinctly and ensure that the community is number one, aware of it, is involved in it, and is part of the planning and the decision-making process that Councillor Thompson and I bring to this. So again, just want to thank him on bringing that forward. And I wouldn't say including my community, but it's including our collective communities in the discussion. That'll be really important for that area. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just to the clerk, I think the request was then Rec 1 can say ward councillors and add the S to it, and then the deputy mayor's amendment for 4B likewise add an S, and then 4A add an S. Are you able to prepare that? We can also stand this down and come back to it once you've made that update.
Yes, we can prepare it and put it on the screen in seconds.
Oh, you can do it now?
Yep.
Okay, great. We'll just wait.
Through the chair, we'll also make the word councillors plural in part A.
Okay, so we can vote on the amendment first. All those in favor? All those opposed? That carries. And then, so item 1 is going to be amended to say councillors, and then 4A.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you okay if we proceed, or do you have it ready to pull up, or we can just vote on it?
We can vote on it and we can make the amendment.
Great. Okay, great. All those in favor of the item is amended? All those opposed? That item carries. Is there anything else we need to do on this item? Can we move on?
From the clerk's perspective, that's all we need.
Okay, great. That brings us to SC 29.11, refusal of a clothing drop box location permit application at 1 Renuk Street. We have one
them with some free food, computers, tablets, and other supplies for the recent Afghan immigrants who arrived in Toronto. There are many benefits of the clothing donation program run by the City of Toronto and other municipalities around the country. First of all, it serves vulnerable individuals throughout the community. We ourselves at our charity, we provide clothing drives and pop-up shops, providing gently used clothing to those below the poverty line within the City of Toronto. There's recycling and waste diversion, lower carbon footprint, which is necessary in these times. And it also allows us to support programming and activities for those most in need. For example, during COVID-19, B'nai B'rith Canada, we launched a free emergency food program within the city, which weekly provides free food, uninterrupted since March 2020, delivered to their door to those who are below the poverty line and immunocompromised within our city. The B'nai B'rith is also a key member of NACTR, which is the National Association for Charitable Textile Recycling, together with other great charities like Salvation Army, Big Brothers and Sisters, Goodwill, and Kidney Foundation. I'm proud to serve on the board of this Canadian Leadership Initiative. NACTR has within its membership every legitimate national charity that owns and operates its own clothing donation program in an ethical and environmentally conscious manner. The organization endeavors to assist in regulating the clothing donation bin sector and ensure that only credible and responsible registered not-for-profit charities whose mission it is to serve various communities in need are able to operate as municipal partners. Now, there are many illegal bins operating within the City of Toronto. In fact, there are some in the councillor's own ward, and many operate in plain sight throughout the city. And for example, within the councillor's ward, 975 Kennedy and 1460 Kennedy, just to drive by and see they're operating today. Despite being illegal and unlicensed, and often unclean and unsafe, they are still being allowed to operate by the city unimpeded. And we fail to understand why they are permitted to do so, and we, a responsible charity who has followed the MLS rules, paid our fees, and operate responsibly, are being denied our right to operate. Now, there are many complaints of messy bins in the city, but the question arises, why are the operators' licenses being renewed if they are not operating according to licensing policies? Those who do not follow the rules, who messy or unsafe bins, should be penalized, not charities like ours who maintain and service their clothing bins at the appropriate level. We are currently a key licensed partner of the City of Markham in their textile donation program, and there are only about 4 charitable partners with that city. And we are appreciated as a responsible and credible charitable partner to that city. Now, partnership with the City of Toronto, long time we've been partners with our city, with our affordable housing, buildings, and sports activities, and indeed our BIN program for years. Benabrith continues to have a solid and stellar reputation with the City of Toronto. Our 3 affordable housing buildings are among the most desirable to live in the city. They are well run, well maintained. They are also permanent affordable housing locations, even after the expiry of our mortgage, because they are run by a responsible charity that can be relied upon by the city and its residents. In fact, we are actively looking to build more affordable housing in the city. Now, with respect to process, the city has approved our licenses. We have followed the application process at every stage, step by step, as advised by MLS. We have permission from the property owners to place our bins. We've paid our licensing fees. Many residents of the City of Toronto want to divert textile products from garbage dumps. Torontonians wish to support great local charities who provide the service, but are often confused by some who hold themselves out as charities, but are actually not. And yet residents are allowed to be confused by illegal bins in the city on a daily basis. Failure to approve clothing bins impacts not only the charities, but the vulnerable folks whom they serve. And I'm more than willing to meet with councillors and/or city staff to discuss the clothing bin sector benefits, and together with NACTR, to work with the city to ensure that clothing bins are legal and that registered not-for-profits fulfill all their obligations. During this COVID crisis, this is the worst possible time to deny any charity a license, as it will only negatively impact the most vulnerable in our society who desperately need our services and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions for the Deputy? Okay. Questions of staff? Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through to staff, as I understand the process, if a clothing drop box, there's an application for a location for a spot in my ward, I get a notice through email and I'm asked to weigh in on it, which I'm fine with. But there also seems to be, so if somebody just drops a clothing box somewhere in my ward, it seems to be a long process to have it removed. And I'm trying to understand, and sometimes when I filed a complaint with 311 about a clothing drop box, it takes a long time to remove. And at other times I've gone by the box and it has a permit sticker on it. And it's almost like, it's the old, it's easier to beg for forgiveness than get permission. So I'd like staff's perspective on what I've said. Thank you. Sorry, Madam Chair, did everybody hear what I was saying?
Yeah,
or?
we did. I was just going to say, do we have staff available to answer the question? Do we have anybody from MLS? I'm not sure we have the staff here to answer that question, Councillor Measley.
I thought this was an MLS item.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Somebody's put their hands up. Okay, great. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
I think she's muted, actually.
Elena, I think you're still muted.
You're muted. There
Thank you. Yeah, I was asking to be unmuted. Good morning, everybody, councillors. I can't speak to the application process. However, Councillor Ainsley, I can address the issue with respect to, I know that you are very proactive in your ward and have put in many a complaint with regards to clothing drop boxes. So there's a little bit of two scenarios. We have a scenario where a clothing drop box is on private property, and then one where they're on city property. And be it permitted or not on city property, they are not allowed at all. So at any time there's a clothing drop box on, how we deal with that though is slightly different. So when it's on private property, we go through our property standards bylaw and the clothing drop box bylaw, and we need to inform the owner of the property to remove it first. That's where there's a bit of a delay. And sometimes, we have to work with the property owner, give them some information. At the end of the day, if it's not being removed, then we would take the proper steps to have it removed from private property, and or if it's licensed but not permitted to be there or at the right location, we'd go through the licensing, the permit process and find out what, if it was granted a permit, where should it be located? So there's going to be a bit of a delay there. When it's on city property, it is a little bit of an easier transition on having the box removed. However, we still have to put a notice on the box, and we try and make contact, but a lot of the times the numbers that are there, there's no easy way of getting a hold of anyone. So we do still put a notice violation on the box, and then we work with our partners in transportation services, because investigation services, we don't have the tools to remove such a sized box. So we work with our partners in transportation services. We need to make arrangements for them to meet us out on site and remove it through their road op people, and then they store it. So that's probably the reason for the delay. But as far as investigating them, as long as we are made aware of it, then we do investigate. And as you know, Councillor Ainsley, anytime you've called or sent an email, or your staff has requesting an update on some clothing drop boxes, we try and get back to you as quickly as possible. So I hope I've been able to answer that portion of it. I can't really speak to the actual licensing parameters, but I can definitely look into it if you need some more information on that aspect.
Okay. And when you talk about boxes on public property, does that include, they're immediately adjacent to a sidewalk? So, they have they would be on a public-private address, but they're within the city easement. So is that still considered on private property then?
I would have to look at each individual case to confirm if that easement is city owned or privately owned. We'd have to look at that as well. But no, if it was completely on city property or that easement belonged to the city, then we would consider that as city property.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Those are my questions.
Any additional questions of staff? Deputy.
Thank you. I just wondered if someone could put up, there's a photo of number 1 Rannoch Street where the placement of this box is being contemplated. I wonder if someone could put up that picture, please.
Through the chair, the clerk can do that. Just give us one moment.
Okay. There are 2 photos. There's an aerial one, and then there is a more site-specific one where there's an X marking the spot. Yes, that's the aerial one. And if you could put up the second one, yeah, that's great. So through you, Madam Chair, to the MLS staff. So this bin, if we were to approve this, would be placed at that specific location. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, again, this is a question that has licensing component to it. I do see one of my colleagues from our licensing office is on the call. I'm not sure if she's able to address.
But it does say that this is where the bin is going to be located. I'm just asking for you to either sort of, endorse.
I'm going to presume,
Yes.
Councillor, that if the
Right.
licensing is permitted, that it would need to be located where they
The X is
intended to put
located.
it, and it's been
Right.
permitted.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
And you may not be able to speak to the specific location in the building itself, but this is a residential building. Is that your understanding?
It appears to be, yes.
Yes. And so this box being placed at that location next to a residential building where you see all those windows are located, presumably someone lives in those particular unit. Would that be a safe assumption?
I would say yes.
And may I ask, and I'm not sure if this is a question you can answer. If it is, that would be great. Just based on your experience with these bins, some of the complaints that you get from folks is all manner of things are placed and put at that location beyond clothing. Would that be correct for me to ask to that question of you? Is that safe to say?
Yes, Councillor, that is correct. We
Right,
do get a lot of complaints.
right. And so, do you know whether or not the residents in the building have been asked whether or not they would be supportive of a clothing bin be placed basically outside their windows?
I don't have the answer to that, Councillor.
Right. But what you do know, though, is that the property owner has given permission to this organization to place their bin on their private property. Is that correct?
Again, Councillor, I don't have that answer. I have been getting just chats from the my colleague Pat Thornback. She's unable to unmute,
Gotcha.
so perhaps if someone can unmute her, she can answer those questions for you.
Okay. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much,
Councillor.
Elena.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, this is the host. I have unmuted Pat Thornback.
Hi, Pat. Good morning. Can you hear me?
This is the host of Deputy Mayor Thompson. I see Pat is connected to the meeting using 2 devices, and both devices are currently unmuted.
Hi there. Hi there. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we
Finally.
can hear you. Hi, Pat. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Sorry about that.
No problem. Did you hear my question,
I
Elena?
did.
Yes. Are you
So
able to answer?
yeah. So we do not ask the residents about the box. We sorry. For the application process, we request a letter of permission from the property owner.
Okay. Okay. That's fantastic. Thank you very much for that answer. That's very helpful.
No problem.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Okay, any additional questions?
I have one more for Elena, Madam Speaker. I just realized, and I think that Councillor Ainslie has asked a few around it, but my question to Elena would be, what are you doing, what is MLS doing about the illegal bins? Can you kind of reiterate that for me so that we have a broader sense of understanding as to what actions are being taken with respect to illegal bins that appear to be on not simply private property, but on city property?
Yes, certainly through you, Madam Chair. As I indicated earlier, so we rely on the complaints, obviously, as we're currently not doing proactive investigations on the clothing drop boxes. So as we receive the complaints, we need to determine if it's a permitted bin, if it's on city property or private property. And as I indicated earlier, if it's on city property, then we need to properly serve the property owner, advising if there is a violation under the bylaw. If it is on city property, again, we do need to issue a notice of violation, which we placard, and we try and attempt to contact the box owners. And failing that, and after having placarded the notice, we work with our partners in transportation services to have the box removed from the city property.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are
You're
all my
welcome.
questions, Madam Chair.
Okay, additional questions, Councillor Carr.
Yeah, Madam Speaker. I found this interesting because I actually have an application that has, or request, I guess, that has come to my office, Councillor Thompson, for the same organization recently. So I'm just, again, recognizing there's a process, and I don't know if staff can answer this, but maybe as part of the process, do private property owners benefit from these boxes when they go in? Is there a rental fee? It may not be part of the process, but I'm just curious if you are aware of property owners, if they benefit at all from these boxes on the properties. Again, not sure if staff can answer that, but I thought I'd like to ask it anyway.
Do we
Chair, I'm
have
assuming-
staff available? We had Elena, I don't see her now.
And that has more to do with the permitting process.
Hi there, it's Pat again.
Okay.
Sorry. There should be no rental fee to the clothing drop box operator.
Okay, which is fine. And then when you're looking at the permit and the whole process, of course, we as councillors do get the application. And do you look at boxes or clothing boxes in an area. Is there any rules suggesting that you can have a limited amount, a maximum amount? As Councillor Thompson was mentioning, in his particular area, there seems to be an overabundance of them. But is that part of the application process in any way? Or are you just sort of moving these through when the requests come in?
We allow 2 boxes per location.
Okay, so that would be private location. Okay,
Yes,
but
private property only.
okay, and you don't look necessarily in a geographic area, and it may be difficult to do that. I understand, but I'm just curious. No, okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, additional questions of staff? I'll ask, I don't know if the appropriate people are here to answer it, but I did have a motion quite some time ago that was asking MLS and solid waste to report back on the potential of a city run program that can kind of help to alleviate some of these problems similar to Markham. Does anybody know the status of that report back in that program?
Through you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, I do not have the answer to that. I'm not sure if my colleague can answer that. If not, it might have to be addressed with our senior management team.
Okay, I think if they can answer, then we'll do that. But if not, I'll send a note over to Solid Waste and MLS after this to see where the report's back. I know that it was pushed due to COVID, like many different reports, but I think it's time to get that back on track. Who is your colleague? Are they here?
Hi, it's me again. It's Pat. Hi. I'm sorry, I don't have the answer to that question either.
Okay, great. Because even the deputy didn't mention, for example, the Markham program, so I think there's some merit in continuing to look at that. Okay, additional questions of staff? Seeing none, we'll move to speakers on this item. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, let me first of all congratulate Brene Briff and on the outstanding work that they do. Really, this isn't an issue about the organization and the great charitable work that they do. This is really about a specific issue on this site, certainly, but also within the context of this area. Just across the street, or actually less than 100 meters away, was the very famous Goodwill dump site, which was essentially a clothing, furniture drop box, and so on. It took us almost 12 years to get that site essentially dealt with. The residents on Roanoke and other areas and so on saw this on a daily basis, and it was very problematic for them in terms of the dumping and the things that occurred with people's unwanted garbage essentially were dumped there and so on, and it became a famous and familiar site. The residents in this area have endured a tremendous amount of problems with respect to drop boxes. I don't support and endorse them. The illegal ones, we're always trying to get staff to deal with them, and as you've heard, there's all challenges that that exist with respect to dealing with these. Let me just say, and if I could ask staff, Madam Chair, if I can just ask staff to put the second of the 2 photos up for me again, so I can just, it doesn't matter with respect to my time because I won't take the necessary 5 minutes. If you can just put that photo up for me again, that would be very helpful because I want to speak to that. The second one. Thank you. Just scroll up a little bit, please. Thank you. That's great. Madam Chair, this is a residential area. This is where someone lives. This is certainly on private property. The company has offered, obviously, this site for Brene Briff to put their clothing box there. But we know that these sites and these boxes will not just essentially receive clothing. They'll receive all manner of things, particularly a lot of garbage. Imagine living in this building. Imagine if your window faces this area, which is to the west on this site at number 1 Rannoch. Imagine being the local councillor who endorses and supports this for those residents. Are we to accept that it's okay for some people to live in certain condition, or these types of conditions to be imposed on residents, my residents particularly. I know that the folks from Brene Brief will want to certainly you utilize the boxes and benefit, and others will benefit from it as well. This is just the wrong location, quite frankly, to place any bins to collect any type of materials, um, because at the end of the day, there'll be a lot of garbage that will actually be placed there. So we have people, whoever want to dispose of whatever materials. Yes, it's clothing, but we know for a fact that it is not just clothing that are placed in this area. But just think about my residents. They wake up on a Saturday morning, they have their children, they have to look at people coming in and dumping all sorts of material right at their window, not across the street, not 20 meters away, but right at their window than it was to pharmacy in Eglinton. So we've endured a tremendous amount of challenges and suffering with these types of bins in our community. I don't think that my residents would appreciate me supporting something of this kind right next to their windows, right next to where they are going to sleep. I don't know what type of materials that will be placed there, but what I do know based on experience, it won't be simply clothing in a box. And no matter how quick they say that they will retrieve them and remove them, the fact of the matter is that it's just not the right place for residents to be waking up and looking out or hearing garbage being placed or noise being made. So for those reasons, Madam Chair, I'm going to endorse the denial of this and move the staff recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional speakers on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote on the recommendation. All those
May I
in
have a
favor?
recorded vote, please?
I'll let the clerk do the recording.
Thank you.
This is a recorded vote on SC 29.11. All in favor? Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Crawford, Councillor Ainsley, Councillor Mantas. All opposed. That carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay, that brings us to our last item. It was the walk-on SC 29.12, Chapter 925 permit parking, Zezalway, Jiyong Street, and Conyers Terrace in Deputy Mayor's Ward. Are there any questions of staff on this item? Anyone speak to this item?
I would just like to move it, Madam Speaker. I think members have had the opportunity to read it. It's not the first time it's actually been in front of us. It is part of a process that has come full circle now, where we are actually going to permit the on-street parking in this specific area. We talked on previous occasions as to why this was something that was necessary. This is not something that I would normally do, but it has come to that point when this is the only option that we actually have. And then we've talked to planning staff about future considerations and ensuring that as they seek to give approvals on some of these developments, that the parking consideration is considered, and ensuring that that is in place on site as opposed to on our street. So I would simply ask members to endorse and support the item. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? That item carries. I will pass it over to the clerk. Are there any confirmatory bills, etc., that need to be passed today?
We will display those motions on the screen. The first will be for the general bills.
Okay, that Scarborough Community Council pass and declares bylaws bills 31 prepared for the January 10th, 2022 meeting 29 at Community Council. Can I have somebody move this? Councillor Mantas, all those in favor? All those opposed? That item carries.
We'll put the confirmatory bill on the screen, Madam Chair.
That Scarborough Community Council pass and declares bylaw confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Scarborough Community Council acting under delegated authority 29 on January 10th, 2022. Can I have somebody move this item? Councillor Ainsley, all those in favor? All those opposed? That item carries. Is there any additional business?
There is not.
Okay, Happy New Year again. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody. Stay safe.
Good morning. My name is Councillor Gord Perks. I'm the chair of the Toronto East York Community Council. The clerk has confirmed that we have quorum present, so I'd like to now call meeting 30 to order. Today's meeting is being held by video conference. City staff are also connected to the meeting by video conference. The public will continue to participate electronically and can watch the meeting streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com Toronto City Council Live. I ask everyone for their patience and with any delays or problems with technical issues. The clerk's staff have connected all registered speakers to the meeting by audio. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Toronto East York Community Council page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Clerk's IT staff will also be available to assist members with their devices. As part of each agenda item, I'll ask members to raise their hand or unmute their microphones if they wish to speak or question staff. I will then create a speakers list and will call on members when it is their turn to speak. When voting on an item or a motion, I ask that members ensure that their video is on and that their hand is raised to indicate their vote. Members, I want to remind you that you must submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at teycc@toronto.ca to help with motions. Although we are in different locations and meeting remotely today, the Community Council would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Members, are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you have an interest, please indicate. I do not see any. I need a motion to confirm the minutes from our last meeting held November 24th, 2021. Councillor Bradford. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay, so members will now proceed through the agenda rundown. Mercifully, this is the most brief meeting I've seen in quite some time, so that may mitigate against the fact that we're all virtual today. So the first item that I'm going to call is changes to Business Improvement Area Boards of Management. Councillor Cressy, Leitner, Mapo. Councillor Cressy. All those in favor, opposed, carried.
What item number is it, Mr. Chair, please?
Item 9. Councillor Fletcher, welcome.
Thank you.
We're now on item 30.10, 147 Spadina Avenue zoning amendment application preliminary report. Councillor Cressy. Oh, there is a deputant on that item, so we'll hold that. Item TE 3011, 100 Davenport Road, zoning amendment application preliminary report. Councillor Layton.
I'll move the staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.12, 412 to 418 Church Street and 79 to 81 Granby Street, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application preliminary report. Councillor Wong Tam.
Yes, thank you. I do have a motion, and if I can ask the clerk to put the amendment onto the screen. Thank you very much. The amendment you folks are all very familiar with. It's almost our standard Ward 13 clause. On top of the community consultation meeting, I'm asking that we hold a site plan working group meeting with the applicant as we move towards the review of this application. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll take the amendment and the item together. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.13, 475 Yonge Street, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application preliminary report, Ward 13. That's you, Councillor Wong Tam.
Thank you very much, Chair. I may have to hold this item down unless the clerks tell me that they have received both motions from my office. I sent a second one not too long ago. I just want to make sure they had enough time to review it. And Ellen, it's Councillor Wong.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, Councillor Wong-Tam. We just received it, so we'll need to have a look at that and after the rundown. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next is item TE 3014, noise exemption permit refusal appeal, 45 Strawn Avenue. Councillor Cressy.
I move recommendation 1 to refuse the application.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 30.15, East Harbor Transit Oriented Community Stakeholder Meeting Update, Ward 14. Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, I have some questions, please, for staff. I'd indicated to the
Okay,
clerk.
so we'll hold that item.
Thank you.
Item TE 30.16. Regent Park. Oh, sorry. I just did that. No, I didn't.
No, that is the correct one.
Yeah, okay. Guys, listen, doing this from sharing remotely is going to be just a panic. Okay. Item TE 30.16, Regent Park Traffic Study, Councillor Wong-Tam.
Thank you very much. I will have to hold that down. And again, Ellen, I just sent you a revised motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item TE 30.17, improvements to pedestrian boulevards on Front Street East. Councillor Fletcher.
It's Councillor Wong-Tam's.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Wong-Tam. Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much. I would like to move the staff recommendations to receive the report and to thank staff for all their hard work. What we're trying to do on Front Street, if I can just very quickly say, we're basically trying to align the Front Street boulevards to make sure that we can make it more pedestrian friendly. This is going to require a significant amount of coordination. I know that the BI has very ambitious plans to make sure that all the site plan reviews are going to essentially align with their master plan for urban design. And we're heading to a good place. There may be some applications that have gone out ahead of this particular body of work, but we're trying to bring it all in-house. And that will require significant coordination and work from staff, including transportation services and of course city planning and urban design. And I want to thank them for this work because I know it's not going to be easy, especially considering most of you will know that St. Lawrence neighborhood is under massive redevelopment. We've got lots of development pressure, and lining up everybody's applications to ensure we get a great Front Street is going to take a colossal amount of work. So I'm looking forward to the work. I know it's going to be heavy, but wherever possible, we're going to make this done. We're going to get it done, and we're going to hopefully leave behind a much better, improved street. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. Item TE 30.18, Portland's flood protection, Cherry Street temporary diversion road, time extension. Councillor Fletcher.
I'm going to move the staff recommendation, please.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 30.19, construction staging area, 2639 Dundas Street West. I'm going to move the staff recommendations. Please be advised there's a revised report that an attachment that were posted just recently, December 29th. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 30.20, construction staging area, 162 Queens Quay East, Richardson Street. Councillor Cressy.
I will move the staff recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 30.21, construction staging area, 15 Devonshire Place. Councillor Layton.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll move the recommendations in the report.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.22, construction staging area, 500 DuPont Street, Hammond Place. Councillor Layton.
I'll move the recommendations in the report.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 3023, accessible parking spaces, January 2022, delegated. I'll move the staff recommendations. Anyone have any motions on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 3024, corridor safety review, O'Connor Drive, Toronto Danforth, Ward 14. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have some motions that the clerk has, and this, of course, is an ongoing project for transportation for the community and my office. I want to thank Barbara Gray and her team for responding so quickly to the safety review on O'Connor and making changes immediately. There were reduced to 40 overnight signs up. There's a number of other things. This particular piece is to actually stop turning prohibition at Dawnlands, which is a very difficult intersection. But I do have a question for the staff, Mr. Chair, that I
Well,
forgot
okay,
to
so
add.
we'll hold that item.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Yep.
Item TE 30.25, parking amendments for wards Parkdale High Park 4, Davenport 9, Toronto Danforth 14, under delegated authority.
I'll move it.
You'll move it?
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.26, parking amendments for wards Parkdale High Park 4, Davenport 9, Toronto Danforth 14, non-delegated.
I'll move that again.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item 30.27, all-way stop at the intersection of Parkview Hill Crescent and amendment application preliminary report. I'll move that. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.30, 645 through 655 Northcliffe Boulevard zoning bylaw amendment application preliminary report. Councillor Matlow.
I'll move the report.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.31, 2345 Yonge Street, zoning bylaw amendment application preliminary report. Councillor Matlow.
I'll move this report too.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.32, 2135 through 53 Broadview Avenue, 344 Eastern Avenue, and 18 through 34 and 40 Lewis Street, official plan amendment and zoning amendment applications preliminary report. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair. I have a motion here on this, which is the community consultation meeting, but Ellen has that. It's to look at the inclusion of a long-term affordable housing units provided within proposed development and include the number and size of the affordable units in the city's planning, the final planning report. To work with transportation services, this is a very complicated intersection, and I cannot simply rely on the developer's planning, transportation study. We need to have that looked at very carefully. And thirdly, these were 6 houses. They've been abandoned for, I can't tell you how many years, at least 13, 14 years. And they were all bought together as one, and there were many rental units. Unfortunately, all the staff, that would be Gwen McIntosh, and unfortunately our dearly departed Denise Graham. They knew this very well. I'm not sure where we're going to find that, but this will instruct staff to get at that so we can ensure the rental replacement units are rebuilt in this development. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item TE 30.33, 373 Front Street East and 90 Mill Street Site Plan Control Application Report. Councillor Wong Tam.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will be withdrawing that item from the agenda.
Okay, so there's a motion to withdraw. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, I now need a motion to introduce items 3034 through 3042. Councillor Bradford, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, I'm just going to work through those quickly. Item 3034, amendment to 1 hour parking on St. Helens Avenue. Councillor Bailao.
I move recommendations in the letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 30.35, bollard installations, Ward 9. Councillor Bailao.
Move recommendations in the letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 30.36, streetscape improvements for the Ossington BIA. Councillor Cressy.
I'm actually going to withdraw that item as we're working with staff on it.
Okay, motion to withdraw. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 30.37, speed limit reductions on Roxborough Street East between Yonge Street and Mount Pleasant Road. Councillor Layton.
Yes, I'd like to introduce the motion and put forward the recommendations in the letter.
Okay, all those in favor of the recommendations in the letter? Opposed? That carries. Item TE 30.38, implementation of permit parking on Kensington Avenue between Baldwin Street and St. Andrew Street. Councillor Layton.
I'd like to move the recommendations in the letter.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 30.39, 49 Felstead Avenue, zoning matter. Councillor Fletcher.
There's a speaker here, Chair.
Oh, you're correct. Thank you. Item TE 30.40, safer streets in Old Riverdale. Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, I'd like to move this and really ask for this to be expedited. This is also, this little zone is being used by Metrolinx for their access to the tracks for the expansion, RER, whatever they've called it now. So there's a lot going on. It's contained area, no way out. So very happy to have staff initiate or begin this work as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 30.41, parking amendments on Elm Street. Councillor Bradford and Fletcher.
On Elm Street? Sorry?
Oh, sorry. No.
On Coxwell and Mortimer.
For 42.
Hang on. I've got my notes mixed
Oh,
up.
41. Yeah, that's right.
41. That's Councillor Layton. My apologies.
No problem.
Councillor Layton.
Yes, I'd like to move the recommendations in the letter.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item TE 30.42, road safety improvements around Coxwell Avenue and Mortimer Avenue. This one is Councillors Fletcher and Bradford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a school in my ward, but many kids come from Councillor Bradford's ward. Interestingly enough, the community safety zone doesn't include Coxwell or Mortimer at current time, the school safety zone. So Councillor Bradford and I would like to have this passed here today. And if you would like to make a comment, I'm happy to have it.
Yeah, I would just add, Mr. Chair, thanks to Councillor Fletcher and the community for their work on this. You've got R.H. McGregor Public School, you got Michael Garron Hospital, you got the East York Civic Center, all at that intersection. And there's a lot of challenges and frequently we have close calls there. So thanks to the community for reaching out. Thank Councillor Fletcher for her support on this. And hopefully we can make some changes to make that intersection safer as soon as possible.
Okay, all those in favor, opposed, carried. All right. Members, that completes the agenda rundown. I see that it is now 10 o'clock, so we can go to our timed items. Item TE 30.1, 677 Wellington Street, official plan amendment application, final report, Ward 10. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, there are no deputants on this item. Councillor Cressy.
Very briefly, I will move the staff recommendations. And just note for members that this is the long planned, long awaited and hard work to unlock the Wellington Destructor and to turn it into a new community, cultural and city asset. And so with kudos to city planning and CREM and Create-TO, but most especially Councillor Layton.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.2, 190 to 200 Sudan Avenue and 18 Brownlow Avenue, zoning amendment and rental housing demolition applications, request for directions report. Are there any questions of staff? Seeing none, Councillor Matlow.
I move the report.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. The succinctness is appreciated today. Item TE 30.3, inclusion on the City of Toronto's Heritage Register Bloor Street Study Cultural Heritage Resource Assessment, St. Helens Avenue to Perth Avenue properties. Councillor Bailão.
Move staff recommendations.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.4, residential demolition application. There is a deputant on this one. Item TE 30.5, residential demolition application 213 High Park Avenue. Sorry? No? I'm going to move the staff recommendations. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.6, refusal of a clothing drop box location permit application located at 2 Regal Road. Councillor Bailão.
Move the alternate recommendations.
All those in favor of the alternate recommendations, opposed if any, that carries. Item TE 30.7, refusal of a clothing drop box location permit application located at 120 Raglan Avenue. Councillor Matlow.
I move the alternate recommendation to approve.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item TE 30.8, application to remove a private tree, 343 Runnymede Road. I'll move the staff recommendations. All those in favor, opposed, carried. So that takes us to item. Oh, okay. 30.4. Why don't we do that one now?
Councillor Perks?
Yes.
I need to hold that down. We are working on a motion with staff.
Okay, so we'll hold that.
Thanks.
That takes us then to item 3010.
To the chair, sorry, this is Ellen. I
Yes.
just wondered if we could, on item 30.5, all I heard was alternate rec. I don't know exactly which recommendation in the report the councillor wanted to move.
On 30.5?
Yes.
I'm moving recommendation 2, approve the application to demolish the 2-story attached with conditions.
Thank you.
My apologies. Okay. That takes us to item 30.101, which is 147 Spadina Avenue zoning amendment application preliminary report. We have a deputant, Mark Henderson, from the District Lofts community. If I could just see if Mark is available and connected to the meeting.
I'm here.
Good morning,
Can you hear
Mark. Welcome. You're going to have 5 minutes to address the committee. If you could begin whenever you want.
Thank you very much, Councillor Perks. Yeah, I represent the District Lofts community at 388 Richmond Street West, and I'm part of a committee that's been formed with a mandate to represent the interests of the owners and residents of this address as they relate to this proposed development at 147 Spadina. In general, I can say that the community here was rather stunned and a bit dismayed, very dismayed by the initial application for this project. It appears to be a rather extreme exercise in overreach, containing a very large number of exemptions to almost all existing city guidelines and many other growth development requirements the city has issued. On the highest level, and from a Queen and Spadina neighborhood perspective, we feel the overall height and massing of the proposal is out of place. With District Lofts, I mean, this building standing at 14 stories, the Morgan across the street, directly across Spadina at 15 stories, and even the planned north and south Queen Spadina subway station development with towers of 15 and 14 stories respectively. The proposed height of the 147 Spadina application at 25 stories is very much out of step with the Queen Spadina neighborhood, both current and planned. Adding to this, and this is from the neighborhood perspective as well, District Lofts is an iconic building design which now, 22 years later, still stands as one of the great examples of modernistic architecture in the city of Toronto. It's garnered a number of awards, including Ontario Association of Architects Architectural Excellence Awards, the Toronto Architecture and Urban Design Awards, and it will be a loss, and the community feels it will be a loss for the Queen Spadina neighborhood to conceal the west end view of one of the most significant multi-residential buildings in recent times. And I speak to the view of the center well and the catwalks connecting the north and south wings, which I hope you're all familiar with. Certainly, the preliminary report as published by Community Planning outlines many of the key issues of concern that our committee has also identified as major impacts to the District Lofts community, but not limited to building height, which I just spoke to briefly, base building height, building setbacks and step backs, tower floor plate size in the south wing. And it would seal off the interior courtyard well. The opening of the well to the west is the only source of direct light for the 6-level terraces within the courtyard, and there's quite a few of those. Residents on this level will no longer enjoy any direct light, and their ability to maintain their terrace green space, the plants and gardens, will be severely diminished or eliminated. It is a significant source of light for the majority of all District Loft residents who have prime windows and hallways facing the interior of this courtyard. And finally, it introduces a number of privacy security issues based on extremely close proximity of the 147 Spadina design. There are floors where terraces are less than a meter away from this building. In summary, there are a number of issues within the 147 Spadina development application that are major concerns to the District Lofts community, many of which city planning has identified in the preliminary report. We hope that with these comments, we have provided context as to some of the impacts to our residents. Many of the points that I've covered here have been made within a letter recently sent to the Councillor's office and city planning. And we look forward to seeing how these items and others yet to be identified are dealt with and resolved as we move forward. We are certainly available at any time for further discussion, and I thank the Council for their time today.
Thank you very much. Almost exactly on 5 minutes. Are there any questions for Mark? No, seeing none. Mark, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today. Are there any questions of staff on this item? Seeing none, Councillor Cressy.
Well, thank you. And I can begin by moving the staff recommendations in front of us, which is to schedule the community consultation. This is the preliminary report, not the final report in front of us. I want to thank Mark for the deputation. Certainly, we've received the application. today, by passing this motion, we will be proceeding to further review this with community input and hopefully to address a number of the issues that staff have already identified in the Playroom report. So this is the beginning, not the end. And I anticipate further discussion and look forward to the community meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. That takes us to item TE 30.13. Just, there we go. 475 Yonge Street, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application preliminary report. Councillor Wong-Tam, you had held that to submit motions. Do we have
Yeah,
those motions?
if Ellen can confirm that for us.
Oh,